everyone! Today I'm going to be looking at the question, what is a sonnet? I'd like to start today's video by giving a special shout out to my Oma and Opa who have just subscribed to my channel. So this video is essentially going to be about what makes a poem a sonnet and what are the different kinds of sonnets. There are some baseline rules to a sonnet. First, it has to have 14 lines. Second, these lines need to be in iambic pentameter. There are a couple of exceptions to that rule, but I'll come to that in a different video. And third, it needs to have a fixed rhyme scheme, but as we're going to come on to just now, these rhyme schemes differ depending on which type of sonnet you're reading or writing. Rather helpfully, all of the different types of sonnets are named after the poets who made them famous, so they're quite easy to remember. The first and most famous type of sonnet is the Shakespearean sonnet. It's arguably the easiest as well, and 154 sonnets from Shakespeare are of course written in this format, but many other poets have gone on to replicate it. The second is the Petrarchan sonnet, made famous by a poet called, you guessed it, Petrarch. And this is arguably a more difficult form of sonnet, but it's also a little bit more free. Just as a side note, Petrarch's real name was Francesco Petrarca, but we anglicised it as we do with everything. And the third, and widely considered the most difficult form of sonnet, is the Spenserian sonnet, invented by Edmund Spenser, who also wrote The Faerie Queene, which you might have heard of. So let's move on to the differences between them now. The Shakespearean sonnet has a very simple rhyme scheme. It goes A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. I'm sorry if I'm stating the obvious here, but I just want to mention that whenever I talk about letters, corresponding letters rhyme. It doesn't mean that they have those letters in the words, it just means that A rhymes with A, B rhymes with B, and so forth. What most people consider to be characteristic of the Shakespearean sonnet is that rhyming couplet. The nice thing about the rhyming couplet is it kind of brings a close to the sonnet in a very compact way. A famous example from Sonnet 130 would be, "And yet by heaven I think my love as fair as any she belies with false compare." The Petrarchan form is a lot more nuanced, particularly in that its 14 lines are split up to an octave, which is a set of 8 lines, and a sestet, which is a set of 6 lines. The rhyme scheme of the octave runs A, B, B, A, A, B, B, A. So as you can see, it's quite restrictive because you have to choose one sound and replicate it in 4 different lines, twice over. However, that being said, Petrarch compensates for this by allowing a little bit of room to maneuver in the sestet. You have a C rhyme, a D rhyme, and an E rhyme, and each of them occur twice, but it doesn't matter where they fall. The Spenserian rhyme scheme is so complicated that I have to remind myself of it every single time I try and write one. Essentially, it's broken up into 4 quatrains and a couplet, which, if it's not self-explanatory, is 4 sets of 4 lines and then 2 lines at the end. Actually, I don't know why I didn't mention this before, but it's the same for the Shakespearean sonnet. But anyway, the rhyme scheme for the Spenserian is A, B, A, B, B, C, B, C, C, D, C, D, E, E. So again, as with the Shakespearean, you've got that nice rhyming couplet to tie it all off at the end. But you've got a lot of repeating rhymes in that. And that is what makes it so difficult, because you have to make sure that you can find enough words with the same rhyming ending in the same semantic field to be able to construct a poem out of that. Because the sonnet form is so restrictive in its structure, poets have been known to play around with inversions, substitutions, Alexandrines on the end, and I'll talk more about all of that in a different video. But to bring this video to a close, I will give you an example of each of the different forms of sonnet, and you can decide which one you like best. So this is the Shakespearean sonnet that I mentioned earlier, Sonnet 130, which is famously quite controversial. My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks, and in some perfume is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go, my mistress when she walks treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belies with false compare. What makes that sonnet so famous is the fact that it satirises the typical hyperbole of other love poems, and sorry to be basic, but that's why I like it as well. I think it's very clever. And now for an example of a Petrarchan sonnet. This is On the Sea by John Keats. It keeps eternal whisperings around desolate shores, and with its mighty swell gluts twice 10,000 caverns, till the spell of Hecate leaves them their old shadowy sound. Often 'tis in such gentle temper found, that scarcely will the very smallest shell be moved for days from where it sometime fell, when last the winds of heaven were unbound. O ye, who have your eyeballs vexed and tired, feast them upon the wideness of the sea. O ye, whose ears are dinned with uproar rude, or fed too much with cloying melody, sit ye near some old cavern's mouth and brood, until ye start as if the sea nymphs quired. We can see that in that example, Keats has chosen to go for the C-D-E-D-E-C rhyme in the sestet. And then for the Spenserian example, I'm going to use one of my own, which I wrote about a year ago, because I don't know any other Spenserian sonnets well enough to be able to recite them on here. To hold a heavy heart would be to feel subjected to the tug of gravity, a grappling for the weight of something real, from the core of the earth a deep envy. And equal and opposing would there be the invisible force of fervent wings, a willing and a longing to be free from the deep recesses of heavy things. A heart that's heavy is a heart that sings, like long-caged birds and clichés all akin. But when a heart is severed by its strings, it aimlessly floats through a silent din, drifting hollow, no longer suspended, its iambic will to beat finally ended. So, in the words of an excessively famous rabbit, that's all, folks. I hope that was informative, and I hope that you kind of got a feel for which kind of sonnet you like the most. Maybe you can go and read some more online. Maybe you can try writing your own. If you do, let me know because I want to hear all about it. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time.